Hey there, and welcome to your natural dye course. I am really looking forward to doing experiments with you, sharing our results together, and also sharing the knowledge that we gain from each other as a group. So my name is Hilary Elhan. I'm a textile artist, a teacher, and a natural dyer. So natural dyeing is something I'm really passionate about, and if you want to get into natural dyeing, which you obviously do because you're here, one of the first things you're going to want to learn how to do is mordant your fibers. Now, not all natural dyes require a mordant. Indigo, which is how I started out, is a really great way to start out because it actually does not require any mordanting of the fiber, but most other natural dyes you'll find you need to prepare the fabric to accept the dye so that the dye stays and that the dye is long lasting on the fiber. You'll notice a difference between fibers that are not mordanted and then fibers that are. The color is just much more vibrant, it's much more long lasting. If you're considering even selling your products or your pieces that you create, then you'll definitely want to mordant them. So today we're going to be mordanting some cellulose fibers, which is like cotton, hemp, linen. We're going to use some vintage cotton, some hand-loomed or hand-woven linens, and I'm also upcycling a little baby onesie, which is 100% cotton. So for cellulose, there's actually a couple of ways that you can mordant fibers. There's not just one way. But the recommended for cellulose is called aluminum acetate. It's not as easily found as your potassium aluminum sulfate. I always want to say aluminum potassium sulfate. That's why I had to check the label, but it's potassium aluminum sulfate, or alum, which is what most people are always referring to when they just say alum, okay? So that's what that is. It's a mineral mordant that's been used since antiquity. I don't want you to get discouraged if you don't have the aluminum acetate, because this can be used. If you're using this, some people use it in combination with the tannin. This is getting very sophisticated, but you would do a tannin, alum, tannin bath. Or if you're just starting out, honestly, I suggest you can just try this. So it does work quite well. So there's different quantities, and that's what I'm going to go into right now for every 100 grams of fiber that you're dyeing. So the fiber that I have stacked up on my digital scale here is it is 100 grams. It's about 4.8 ounces. So it's actually 4 ounces, okay? And I'm just going to round up when I throw my aluminum acetate into the dye bath. So here's my aluminum acetate. You'll see I have a steel pot here that is, I want it to boil, so I'm going to go ahead and close it. I want it to boil, and then I want to reduce the heat and let the fabric simmer inside. So it's almost boiling. There's a couple of other ways to do this. Sometimes, because the water that comes out of my sink is piping hot, sometimes I just fill like a plastic container with really, really warm water, and I go ahead and I dissolve the aluminum acetate in a smaller glass jar and then like pour it in. And sometimes I just mort it here, especially if my stovetop is full. I just make sure that I move the fabric around a lot. So these are 2.5 gallon containers, and this is about a 3 gallon steel pot. You can use like 5 gallons, work really well. So bigger if you have more fibers, and if you want them to be able to move around freely so that they can absorb all of the mordant. Now mordants are mineral salts that have been used since antiquity to get the dyes, the natural dyes, to adhere and bind to the fiber, making the dye long-lasting and permanent. So in this course, we're actually going over 3 different natural dyes. The first 2 I'll share with you today. The first week, we're going to be studying the pomegranate, which when pomegranate is in season, I save my own pomegranate skins, and I'll talk about that more in the next video and how to freeze them. This is not pomegranate. This is like growing season right now, but they're not ripe yet. So I got my pomegranate rinds that are pre-ground. I have a little pomegranate extract here, which is just a really potent version of the rinds. And then this is actually my jar of pomegranate, and I have been using this pomegranate bath that I created for a really, really long time. I've been using it probably since a workshop that I did about 2 or 3 months ago, and I've just stored it in glass jars. So that's one thing that you can consider. So for today, let me show you one more natural dye, which is madder root. I'm actually going to mordant a lot of my stuff all together because I realized I only have a little bit of aluminum acetate left. So I want to go ahead and get those pieces, the cotton pieces, pre-mordant with aluminum acetate. And I will be back to share another video. You can do the potassium alum with a little bit of tannin combination or washing soda to make that work really well. And washing soda is something that you can make at home. So I'll talk about that in my next video with you so that you'll be able to see both processes. So I have about 100 grams of fiber here, which is about 4 ounces. And for 4 ounces, you want to use 2.5 teaspoons. This is important. 2.5 teaspoons of the aluminum acetate. So let me show you how I would pre-dissolve it. And you want to have your own glass jars that you don't use for anything else. That's what I recommend. So I would get really, really hot water from my tap. Okay, so I have my super hot water right here, and I'm going to go ahead and dissolve it. So let me show you the alum acetate. Some people might want to wear a mask, especially if you are like really sensitive lungs, because it is, I've noticed it's like a little unstable, and when I open it, like all of this powder tends to come out. So if you're working in a well-ventilated area, it's not too bad right now because I don't have too much left. So 2.5 teaspoons. This is my teaspoon here. So I'm going to go 1, okay, 2. And the reason you want to pre-dissolve it is just because you don't want clumps in your dye bath. 2, and I'm going to just do 3, okay, because I know I really have more like 5 ounces instead of 4.8, so or instead of 4. So I'm just going to go ahead and do 3. You can totally get away with doing just like 2.5, and then you're going to stir it up, and you're going to want to see it completely dissolve. Now, a lot of dyers, they actually reuse their alum baths, and that's another reason why if you make it a little bit stronger, I was looking for the lid, if you make it a little bit stronger, you can like keep using it and just maybe add a little to boost it each time. But again, you'll have to kind of estimate and be the judge about how much alum is actually still left in your container. So you can see here, it's like pretty much completely dissolved. So now I'll be ready to pour it into my boiling dye pot. Okay, so it's not quite boiling yet, so I'm going to go ahead, I'll just pour it in there. I did put a lot of water because I'm dyeing a lot of things, so it's filled basically up to here. I think I probably need to turn up the heat a little bit more. Okay, so steel dye pots, we can talk about that for a minute. Aluminum, I don't use it because aluminum can leach into the bath, okay? And aluminum can affect the color that you get. Some people are mordanting with copper and aluminum and even iron, which I'll talk about in another video. So I just use steel, and I get them from restaurant supply stores. You can also order it on Amazon. I also know a lot of people go out and thrift them. I haven't been so lucky to find them at thrift stores, but I know a lot of people are finding these awesome steel pots And they're very economical if you can find it at a thrift store or something like that. So I'm going to let it reach a boil. I'm going to show you what we're dyeing with today. So this is like this gorgeous, super fine linen shawl. And I wanted to say that if you're planning on folding or tying any of these, as in tie-dye or shibori, you can do it either way. You can mordant first and then tie, okay? Or you can tie first and then mordant. I'm probably going to tie first and then mordant, simply because once it's mordant, you bring it out and then you store it. Let's take a peek at our dye pot. Ooh, it's gonna start boiling soon. It's looking good, okay? I might want to give it a stir with I just use these long dowels that I have everywhere from my eco printing classes. So I'm just going to use a long dowel here. Kind of give it a stir. I want all of the alum distributed evenly. Okay. And then I would drop my pieces into the dye bath and I would reduce them to a simmer. I would simmer for 1 hour. I'll take them out. And at that point, they can be wrung out completely and they'll be ready for dyeing. Okay? I hope you enjoyed this video. You can let me know if you have any questions. You can find me on my website at hilarylhahn.com, or you can find me at the Creators Path, which is a website for artists who take workshops and who are dyers and who host workshops.